In Focus is powered in part by Go Chevrolet at I-25 and the Boulder Turnpike. Your source for new or used cars and trucks, and reliable service for most makes and models. GoAutoChevrolet.com.
Welcome to In Focus with Eden Lane.
Later tonight, we bring you to Broadway to learn about Peter and the Starcatcher before it makes its national tour debut here in Colorado. But we begin at the Buell Theater for the Denver Center Theater Company's production of a holiday classic, White Christmas. We'll meet members of the cast, but we begin with the creative team behind this dazzling production.
Thank you for coming in early on your opening night for White Christmas at the Denver Center Theater Company. To tell you that we've been looking forward to this ever since the season announcement that this is going to be your production. What made you choose this year?
Well, you know, it's a terrific musical because it has a great story, a heartwarming story about romantic love, but also the support of a general from World War II unit. It also has glorious music, and it really is a 1950s Broadway musical in many ways. We have 22 pieces in the orchestra.
Wow.
We've got fabulous choreography by Patty Colombo and great musical direction by Greg Coffin. So it's really that kind of wonderful, uplifting, thrilling musical at Christmas.
And when we see it on stage, it mirrors the movie as much as possible, as much as a stage adaptation can do. And we get all of our favorite numbers in there. We don't get choreography, though, do we?
We don't get choreography,
Or
Mandy, or Abraham.
So were you disappointed you didn't get to choreograph choreography?
Well, it's a very funny piece, and Danny Kaye, of course, did that. But no, I think they put in piano and other things that weren't in the movie that makes up for that.
When you're taking a piece that's so vintage and placing it on modern orchestras, what's the challenge for you as the music director to sort of get the harmonies right so that it salutes the original material, but it's sort of refreshed for the audience?
It's actually, for me, it's a vocal and an orchestral challenge. The orchestrations for this are by a brilliant man named Larry Blank, and they're beautiful, beautiful homages to both the Broadway musicals of the time, film and recording orchestration. So it really runs the gamut all the way through the evening of different beautiful nods to different orchestrations. Vocally, I did a whole bunch of research on the mid-50s and watched all of those great movies. I actually went back to 42 to Holiday Inn, where White Christmas first appears, right? And went all the way through the movie musicals to kind of get my ear wrapped around harmonies, shimmer choirs, things like that happen in movie scores, so that we could bring that forward on the stage. We get great examples of that too. There's a beautiful quintet that sings in The Best Things Happen While You're Dancing. That's a wonderful little shimmer choir tribute.
You need a lot of voices to be able to do that.
We have 28 of them to do
28 voices.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. What is that like to manage 22-piece orchestra and 28 voices? What is that like?
It's a lot of work. We had an ample rehearsal time, really. We had a luxurious rehearsal time, and the score is so well thought out as to where those voices are placed. You hear the big voices when you want them in the big numbers. White Christmas is a full-out shout, and things like Love and the Weather are just two people singing a man and a woman's verse back and forth. So it's a really great distribution of the voices.
One of my favorite songs is Snow. Not only because I love the train, but I just love that piece, and it's that nice arrangement of those four voices. So
it's beautiful. It starts with four in our train. That song was originally cut from Call Me Madam, and brought into the production by Irving Berlin. It's great. It starts out with four little folk kind of singing about their hopes and dreams of getting up to Pine Tree, Vermont, and then bit by bit, as the passengers start to get into the train, it works its way into a 28-person number. And once again, the vocals on it are really full and really well thought out too.
And staging all of those actors, and some are singers who can move, and some are probably dancers. Tell me what that was like for you.
Well, actually, this production, you have to sing and you have to dance and you have to act.
Oh, so we don't have that 1950s sensibility where there's some that...
You have a couple of characters you know, the general who doesn't have to do much dancing and much singing, but you don't have many people that don't contribute on singing and dancing
Wow.
and at times acting. So we had to get triple threats. And then she can talk about the numbers because the numbers are incredible that she's created.
Oh, they're fun. You know, again, it's just such fun music to dance to. There's everything from swing, kind of, tap, to kind of a sexy boy guys around the lead, around Amy Bodnar. And it's kind of a vampy song, and that's really cool.
Do you get to exploit that vintage movement vernacular?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, it's a lot of, like, Blue Skies is very Jack Cole-ish, Bob Fosse, I guess, ish feeling. And in fact, I believe Bob Fosse was not given credit for one of the,
That's right.
some of the numbers in the show, in the movie. But I like, it's the same thing. It's honing from the era of the 50s, the feel of it, the jitterbug feel and the swing of Let Yourself Go, to piano, the homage to all those great tap movies from, you know, Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly, everyone, Ann Miller, all the, you know, all those incredible.
And you get to exploit the modern technical sensibility that
Yes.
you can recruit.
These are really trained dancers. They're Broadway people and very adept at doing different styles, which has always been very important to me. And they adapt extremely well.
When you're directing a piece like this, the book is sometimes the book is sort of treated as an excuse to get from one number to the next, but
Yes.
that's not your style.
No, and I think David Ives and Paul Blake, who took the movie script and the several movie scripts, because as in all movies, there was the original movie script and then there were several versions, and then they kind of worked out a smart way to not only have to have the connective tissue between, really be about the character development, really be about Bob and Betty's kind of fractious relationship, or Phil and Judy's kind of happy-go-lucky relationship, or the general's whole struggle to keep the inn open with Martha. So they've done a really good job, and by putting things like I Love a Piano, which is not as connected to the plot, they at the top of Act 2, it's really brilliant because they don't have to justify it, because we know we're rehearsing for a show, and then they go on to the next scene, which gets us back into the plot line.
I love those sort of show within a show kinds of pieces. I always have. I've been a huge fan of that. Another thing that we're getting to see here is that there's going to be a connection to Colorado's military community to your production. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, we have Color Guard coming on 5 different nights, and we have 5 different nights that are military nights with special discounts to military veterans or current forces serving and their families. And we have a Color Guard that's from Vietnam, World War II, and Korea that come in and put the U.S. flag and the Colorado state flag down near the stage right before the curtain starts. It's very moving, and the audience really responds to it. And of course, this is so much a story about a group of men that bonded during World War II under severe hardship, and at the end they come together to save the general's Vermont Inn. And so it has a total connection to it, and we're very happy to participate and to invite these military families so we can honor them throughout the run of White Christmas.
Well, even though it's been a while since we've done it here, this is a completely refreshed, probably almost reimagined version at the Denver Center Theater Company, and I'm so excited to see your work. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
making time for me on your opening night.
Oh,
Thank you.
Next, we meet 3 of the leading players from this amazing cast.
Well, tonight is your opening night, and you were so generous to come in early and talk to us. I really appreciate that.
Thanks for having us.
How does that feel to know that after, because you've had a fairly lengthy rehearsal period for this production based on the way things run these days. How does it feel to finally make it to the finish line, as it were, or the starting line? Really?
It's great. It's exciting. I think we've all been waiting for
We're ready.
to open and have the opening
Yeah.
night and have
You're
a
not
good time.
burnt out on the holidays already because of it?
No, not at all, actually. I
No,
think
it is funny though. I was out on Monday, and every store I walked into, there was a version of White Christmas playing somewhere.
Really?
Yeah, somebody's version, Barry Manilow version, this version of Bob Hope, they were all going already. So yeah. So hopefully people won't
You're
be
being
burnt out
haunted
before
by
they
that
come to our
Christmas
show. Yes.
season.
Have any of you played this show before? Is this your first? Yes.
Yes.
It's my first time.
Your first
They've
time.
done it before.
Yeah.
So what's different for you about doing it at the Denver Center Theater Company in this sort of refreshed, recharged staging of it?
You
Do you
want to
want
go first?
Okay, sure. I'll go. The wonderful thing about, first of all, anytime you're in a new space, in a new theater, there are challenges and enjoyments to that. And so we're discovering that as you know, we've been getting our audiences, our preview audiences, these last couple of weeks. And also to work with a director like Kent Thompson, who's directing the show, who has such a facility and an enjoyment of what he's doing. It has made it fresh, certainly for me, after having done it years ago, to come back and do it again and approach it in a different way. And he has a different approach, and it's really been marvelous to be a part of.
It's funny you mentioned that because one of the things that I find with Kent's work is that even when he's doing something as frothy as a musical, he doesn't ignore the book at all. He doesn't ignore the character.
Not at all. I did the production here in 2007, actually, and I was very surprised to actually have the production be more fresh even than it was in 2007. It was working with Kent. He's very an actor's director, so he pays so much attention to the scene work and the transition just as much as the musical numbers and the dances, which is really refreshing for someone who does musicals all the time. And I'm a dancer, so the dances are usually really really focused on more for me, and so it's just really wonderful to be able to really dig into the character and the acting scenes.
So this is your first time getting to be in this production. What does it feel like to, be such an integral part of the holiday season for your 2,800 member audience every night?
It's amazing. I love the show. I love the music. I love Christmas. And Denver's an amazing city. So just to be able to be here for the holidays and put on this incredible show with this cast, it's a stellar cast. There's not a weak link in the entire cast. It's a pleasure to be on stage with everyone. Kate, with Tom, with Amy, and the ensemble. Everybody is just fantastic.
28 voices in your ensemble.
Yeah.
And that's going to cost us. That's going to cost us big time. Thank you, though, Nicholas.
That's a huge production for a very intimate story. So when you're telling the story, how do you approach it as an artist? I mean, yes, it's a big, splashy musical, and it's the holidays, but it really comes down to the fact that you're an actor playing this character. So how are you approaching that?
Well, for me, I went back to the source. I mean, not that I watched the movie and stuff like that, but I was such a fan of the movies of that era that I approached it from that. I approached it from that sort of stylistic way that they conducted themselves in those days, and the way that they made those movies in those days. Because this is one of the quintessential movie musicals, and so I wanted to honor that. I think with how I approached it.
There's an interesting component in that is that manners were very different then. Body language would be different, so you can't contemporize it too much and still be
true. And also, attitudes were different, and the way people acted were different. Men weren't as in touch with their feelings perhaps as they are now, and didn't show their feelings perhaps as much as they did now, and maybe women as well.
Yeah, I was just about to say that I was actually thinking about that the other day, that women in the 1950s really acted very different. So I have to be very careful on stage to not integrate too much of my own personality, because I'm much more, open, and I guess because women these days, you can touch men and it's fine, but Judy wouldn't do that. As
a gentle touch on the arm would carry a lot of
a lot more meaning than it does today, and I have to be very aware of that. That's why I kind of studied the film a little bit. I'm a huge fan of Vera Ellen. So I kind of studied her mannerisms and the way she stood and her arms on her hip, because it was very stylized, and I'm trying to honor that to bring the integrity of the film to the stage. And
even the comedy was very different then. Are you finding it difficult to incorporate that in your work? Or?
It's been definitely a work and a challenge to really bring that vaudevillian 1950s comedy to my performance, but once you get it, it's really special. It's really great.
So we know we're not coming to see the movie. We're coming to see a real piece of theater. Yeah. I mean, we'll see all of those brilliant notes that we love about the movie, but it is different. So how do you describe it when you're telling friends and family who haven't seen this before about White Christmas on stage?
It's a beautiful show that has a lot of heart, and yes, it'll remind you of the movie, and it'll bring back some fantastic memories of seeing Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye and all that cast. But as well, it's a new experience because there's some new songs added, and there's some wonderful moments that are not in the movie, and some different little storylines that were added for the stage production.
And that is true. Yeah, it doesn't follow the movie exactly.
It really shouldn't. Don't you think? Don't you think it's better that it doesn't?
Yes, yeah, I think there should be some originality to it, and you know, something that the audience doesn't expect. And of course, the other thing that you get in live theater, which is the wonderful thing about live theater, is you get the sets. You get a 22-piece orchestra, and you know, you get this, you know, beautiful barn and inn and all this stuff that we have on the stage, and that's what's magnificent about coming to the theater to see it, as opposed to watching a beautiful movie on your television or your big screen TV. You're getting to see something magnificent.
You don't
live.
need a 3D television.
Exactly.
You have 3D actors on stage
And
dancing and sweating.
And it's different every night. It's never the same
It's live
ever,
theater.
which is why we do what we do.
Yeah.
It's always surprising. I know for me, it's never the same, backstage or on stage. So it's always a surprise and a
And that's
delight.
what live audience does for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Has anyone in the preview audience started to sing along to any of these familiar songs
I
yet?
actually saw that last
Absolutely,
night.
yes.
I
We've had
did.
great participation. Actually,
Yeah.
there's one moment where they can sing along, and they do,
Oh, good.
which has been really nice. It's really.
I'm sure for you,
Yeah.
you probably a lot because you sing so many of the quintessential songs in the
Yeah,
movie.
but it's great to have the audience to be a part of it and feel like they want to do that. So that's been
It's
enjoyable.
a lovely choice that they've returned to this production and refreshed it and recharged it and added so much more color this time around. And I'm so eager to see you tonight. Good luck tonight. Or,
Thank you.
well, you're actors, so I could say break a leg, but you identified yourself as a dancer, so I'll say Merd.
Nerd, yes,
Nerd is
nerd.
And we'll see you tonight. And thank you so much.
Thank
Great,
you.
thank you.
Pleasure.
We'll keep talking.
This Broadway caliber production from the Denver Center Theater Company runs through Christmas Eve, and details are available at denvercenter.org, as well as information about Peter and the Starcatcher. And that brings us to New York.
We're at the Brooks Atkinson Theater right here on Broadway for a sneak peek at Peter and the Starcatcher before it comes to Denver. It's launching the national tour with us at the Ellie Calkins in the Denver Center for the Performing Arts. But I have a chance to meet the playwright Peter Ellis and the producer Nancy Gibbs, who's also from Colorado. Thank you for letting us come and hang out in the balcony at the Brooks Atkinson as you're getting prepared to launch Peter and the Starcatcher for tour. I'm so glad that we're the first stop. What I want to talk to you about first is, how did you choose Denver as the first stop?
I have a long standing relationship with Randy Weeks, and because I grew up in Denver, although people won't let me say I'm from Denver anymore, I now have to say I'm from New York because I've been in New York more than half my life. And Randy said, "Oh, I'm not sure about it." And then he saw the show, and he said, "We want to do it. We want to be first. We can do it in the summer like we've done. We've launched other plays and musicals.
Very recently, a great success.
A
with
great
launch,
success with
a
yes,
launch.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And I said that would be fabulous because if a cast can do the show in Denver, they can do it anywhere because of the altitude. So if you learn how to do the play in an altitude, you're
raring
good.
to go.
Absolutely.
And I'm so delighted that you got him to see it so that you could build that relationship, because your work in adapting this story, what was pretty much a children's story, into a piece of theater is brilliant. And I don't use that word lightly. I loved it so much.
Well, I have nothing to add.
How did you, I know it was sort of serendipitous that you got to be the playwright for this, and that tell me how that happened.
Well, I wonder if that's not true to some extent with anybody who gets to do anything. You know, just being in the right place at the right time, or knowing the right people. And in this particular case, the right people were the directors, Roger Rees and Alex Timbers, who were given the assignment of adapting a 500-page novel written for an 8-year-old girl that's very rangy and unwieldy and picaresque to the stage for a 2-hour show. And the play that they wanted to make from this novel was a play for adults, principally. And so there wasn't a lot from the novel to actually be able to use other than the plot, and there's lots of it. And they needed somebody to come along and suggest some principles of inclusion and exclusion, what to keep, what to cut, what to recreate for the purposes of telling the story on stage. And Roger and Alex wanted to do this really, really interesting thing for me, which was to make a play out of nothing, this do-it-yourself aesthetic. And they didn't want to trick it up with a lot of stuff, like sometimes happens in the theater now, you know.
And that's valid sometimes, but it's not the
well, you know,
the
it's,
only way to tell this kind of
we're
story.
so used to Hollywood serving everything up to us, you know, if it's E.T. or if it's some sort of a rocket ship or if it's a flood or if it's a car race. We get the director's idea of what that looks like, and it's delivered to us in visual terms so that we don't have to do anything but spectate. And the theater, Roger and Alex believed, and it's sort of crazy that they do because they're very different people, very different ages, from very different backgrounds, but they overlap.
Nicholas Nickleby, Bloody Andrew Jackson.
Right? So, you know, you're talking about, you know, two ends of a spectrum, but they overlap in this idea of story theater. And so do I. So as a friend of the court, they asked me if I would write some stuff for the actors to say at a workshop, and the authors of the novel, Dave Barry and Ridley Pearson, happened to be there. And they said, who wrote that stuff? Because none of that's in the novel. And I edged to the door thinking, you know, I'm just going to slip out anonymously. And then they said, because it's really funny and we love it. And so I said, oh, I did that. And they said, well, are you going to write the play? And everybody looked at me, and I thought, okay, I'll write the play. And that's how I got the gig, and that's what I mean about being in the right place at the right time. And for this play, Peter and the Starcatcher, it has really been the right place for me, because I get to work with Nancy Gibbs, Denver native, and I get to work with Roger and Alex, whom I really admire, and we get to tell this story out of nothing, which is just the sort of theater that I love, and the sort of theater that's interactive, because theater is really sort of the first interactive game, and the audience gets to play along, and we made this play that became, you know, a Broadway hit, and we're going to be taking it to the Ellie. And I can't wait to see it in another beautiful theater than this magnificent room.
And we're going to sort of replicate your proscenium on tour, because
as far as we know, that is the plan.
There are so many clues to the story in that proscenium.
Well, you see, really, it is in a nutshell, or a microcosm, or one of those words, everything that you need to know about the play, because it's all made out of junk. It's a dumpster diving experience. This set. In totality. Nothing appears in the play that hasn't been used before. And there's no technique in the storytelling that isn't hundreds of years old. There's no hydraulics, there's no wires, there's no harnesses, there's no motors.
But there's tons of magic and heart in this storytelling that you've constructed.
I think so. And I think audiences really lean forward for that sort of thing now, especially because it's not the kind of a theater experience that we generally get these days. And so they encounter it as though it's new, and of course it's very, very old. And the story is interesting, and the presentation of the story is phenomenal.
Does this style of theater, it must be a producer's friend, because you don't have all of those other things happening so...
It is in many ways. It is what so many of us who work in the theater got involved in the theater in the first place. It reminds us of our first experiences and what that magic was, because the magic is something about the chemistry with a script and a group of actors and found items. So the set is whatever you can find. I mean, it takes us also back to our childhoods, where, oh yes, let's play at school, let's play at something. So it feels like that, and yet these are very disciplined, very smart, very dedicated performers. Our designers are phenomenal, and
they're so clever with so many little things. That was just this thing, and now it's another thing, and we're in a different place with one little...
Do you know, an amazing thing happened, which is there's only a handful of Broadway shows that have ever swept the Tony Awards for design. And until Peter and the Starcatcher, there had never been a play that had done it. And Peter and the Starcatcher won the Tony for all the designers because they were all so at the top of their game. It's such a fantastic looking, sounding, feeling, tactile kind of production.
And it's collaborative with the people who made this show, but it's collaborative with the audience every night in ways that theater always is, but in ways that some theater isn't, because we have to join you in this story in a new way for many audiences, and even though it's such an old technique, as you mentioned. It was thrilling to be here, and I can see how easily this version will be the version we see in Denver at the Ellie Calkins.
Oh, yes.
As opposed to something that has to be reconfigured. Can't wait to see it there with all my friends.
We can't wait to do it. It's
That's
very
very
exciting. We've
exciting.
got our summers blocked out.
That's right.
And when you come for the launch, because creators often come for the launch, I hope we get to visit again. Thank you so much.
That would be great. Thanks,
You
Eden.
bet. We'll be there for sure.
You won't want to miss Peter and the Starcatcher when it makes its national tour debut at the Denver Center. Before we go, a preview of next week's meeting with Dixie, who's returned with her Tupperware party to the Galleria Theater.
You've become a Coloradan because you've been here so many times.
That's what I feel like. This is my third time back, and I'm here this time for 7 whole weeks. I feel like I know I should probably get a driver license here.
And this is the second time you're here for the holidays.
I know, it's so nice.
The Denver Center loves to have you here, not just because your show is so good, but people get to do their holiday shopping while they're here.
It's a nice thing. This way, everybody can get stuff and get some specials and everything like that. And I do all kinds of different things that I'm going to roll out during the holidays. So, yeah, it's a great thing because people always love Tupperware, and it's a wonderful thing to be, well, get some little Tupperware products, get them for under the tree, get them in the stockings. Oh, my Lord, it's the best thing in the world. And
During this holiday season, you can support this one-of-a-kind arts programming. Details are found on our webpage, IdenFocusTV.org.
That's all for this edition. Remember to join us on Facebook and Twitter. With all that Colorado has to offer, we're here to help you keep it in focus. Thanks for watching. Good night.